What is going on, guys, and welcome to another BRZ video. Now, this is going to be a little bit different from my last couple of BRZ videos because my last couple of BRZ videos were more of like showing the mechanical side of installing parts, and this video is going to be a little bit more of driving and showing you guys some pictures here and there from the install, but mostly telling the story of how the install went. And the reason why I wanted to do it that way is because there were just a lot of things going on during the time of installing the coilovers, and some interesting things ended up happening. And I also, I was like, I think I'm out of wiper fluid, because like I pulled the wiper stalk and the windshield sprayers looked like the world's lowest pressure garden hose for a second. Like literally it was the puniest stream of wiper fluid I think I've ever seen. But with all of that being said, so the suspension, if you're not following my Instagram where we announced all this stuff originally, the suspension that we're running on the TS now is a two-way adjustable KW Clubsport coilover suspension. Now, I went with the KW Clubsport for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted a really quality coilover setup, like a really high quality coilover setup. Two, I wanted something that could take, pretty much kind of take a beating at the track and not really give up on me. And three, I wanted something that came with camber plates included in the front. And the reason why I wanted that was because I didn't want to have to do any sort of extra assembly from getting, you know, camber plates from one company and coilovers from another company, because we already had to do control arms in the back from Virus Engineering to get the camber right in the rear. So the camber in the rear isn't adjustable on these cars, and it's a little bit of a shortcoming of the rear suspension in my opinion. But I will tell you, one thing I will tell you is the Nissan van behind me is extremely close to my back bumper. But either way, what I will tell you is that the stock suspension on the TS that it comes with from the factory is actually really good. I don't know why traffic's moving so incredibly slow right now, but the stock TS suspension is very good from the factory. And the only thing that I didn't really care for about it was the fact that when you really started pushing it hard at the track, it was a little soft, and it caused the car to bottom out a little bit and hit the bump stops. And when you're hitting bump stops, you're using all of your travel, and it can kind of take away from basically taking some lines that you would want to take at the track. Like, for example, if you're jumping the turn 3 curb at Road Atlanta and you're bottoming out really hard and smacking into the bump stops every single time, it's kind of annoying, and it can also kind of upset the car a little bit. So with that being said, I wanted to go up to a stiffer spring rate, but have a coilover shock that had a lot of adjustability and could be tuned for the street and the track. And I'm really glad that I went with the KW Clubsport. Now, the reason why I didn't go with Öhlins like I have on the S2000 is because the spring rates on the Öhlins were extremely soft for their 86 and BRZ setup. And I'm not sure if I don't think they actually offered any kind of other options for spring rates. I think they only gave you one option, and that was all that you got. Now, I'm sure that somebody in the aftermarket makes something in terms of springs for the Öhlins dampers for the 86 and BRZ, but I didn't really want to have something or have to deal with something that I would have to basically get and then take apart and change a bunch of parts on and then put back together and then install. I wanted a bolt-on solution that already had the spring rates, or at least close to the spring rates that I wanted, and the camber plates already all put together, and something that we could just go ahead and put on the car after we unboxed them. Now, the other reason why I really like the KWs is the KW Clubsports actually come with a base tune already on the coilovers, which they're still currently on the base tune for the suspension, which is kind of nice, because if you were to get your hands on a double adjustable suspension that didn't even have like a base tune, I mean, either you would have to do a lot of research to set it up, or you would have to take it to somebody that was specifically dedicated to setting up suspensions, which I am going to take it to a suspension guy to really dial it in and set it up and corner balance it and everything. But I'm really glad that they provide that base tune for the shocks so that you kind of have a starting point to begin with. And these shocks are awesome, by the way. Like the shocks and the tuning of the shocks to the springs, it feels really, really good. And it's interesting because I took this particular route specifically because we had a back road where we could kind of, not do anything crazy, but kind of, throw the car around just a little bit. And the second I got to the twisty section, we got behind a truck. So there's that. Now, the other interesting part of the story, wow, the truck took off. Well, I say he took off. He floored it. He made a bunch of noise, but it didn't go anywhere. Now, the other part of the story that I found really, really interesting was they come with a base setting for damping as well as height. And the base damping was fine. The base height was not fine. The base height had this thing slammed, and I'll put a picture up on the screen right now of how low this car was, like in the base setting, because it was bad. Like, it was really, really low. And that's not necessarily like a knock against KW or anything, but at the same time, when you're buying something like a KW Clubsport, it's a track-oriented coilover. It's, well, I should say, a street coilover with some track-oriented properties. But still, you would expect that it wouldn't be slammed on the ground. But man, my car, when we set it back down for the first time on the base height, dude, it was absolutely on the ground. It was slammed, like Stance Nation slammed. Now, we did raise it back up by a little bit, which really, really helped. We raised it back up by about 1.5 inches, and that really, really helped take care of that. Yo, that's a Fiesta ST hauling 2x4s, hauling wood. That's awesome. Like, that dude is like putting his Fiesta ST to use. I love that. I love that. I still can't get over how this thing sounds. And all it's got is an FT86 Speed Factory muffler delete. I mean, no crazy exhaust work or anything. It's just a nice smooth tone. Nothing too loud, nothing too crazy. And I know a lot of people do like a header and a catback and an overpipe, and they do a full exhaust basically. And, honestly, for me, that's not really what I wanted. I wanted something that was just very daily driver friendly and very daily livable, because it is my daily driver, which is kind of an odd thing to think about, because why would I go putting, KW Clubsports on my daily driver? Well, that's the other thing, is that I wanted a fairly civilized suspension setup that wasn't too, oh my God, I cannot go in there. Nope. I was gonna turn around in a parking lot, and then I realized the entrance was like 4 feet deep. And even though we raised up the Clubsports from their base setting, they're still a little bit lower than stock. And so anywhere that you would have scraped on stock suspension, you'll really scrape now. You'll really scrape now. I think I'm going to... I was considering turning around, but at the same time, I don't know where this goes. That's why I was considering turning around, but I was like, it'll pop out somewhere, right? Oh, God. Oh. Yo, this is a dead end, bro. Oh. Leaves house to do a car vlog. Ends up at a dead end, squeaking his track pads as he turns around in the middle of the road. I do love this car though, and I wanted to give you guys another update on it because it's so nice. It's so nice to drive. And yeah, I know that everybody loves to throw the whole like, yeah, they're a nice car or they handle good, but they don't have any power and so it's not worth it, blah, 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 blah. Dude, I'll tell you something, like, these things may only make like 200 or 205 horsepower at the crank, but it's the most fun 200 crank horsepower you're ever gonna deal with. Because I mean, like, when you really learn to modulate this car and balance it, and you throw it in and out of corners, fun. I've owned one. Supercharged 86s are fun. I have never owned a supercharged 86, but I've driven one, and they're a blast. But I gotta tell you, having a proper suspension setup and a sticky tire on a stock power 86 is actually a lot of fun to drive. It's a lot of fun to drive. Currently, I have RE71Rs on the stock wheels, and honestly, man, I really like the feel of it. I like the feel. The stock tire size is a 215, and having a, you know, narrowish tire in a sticky compound is fun for multiple reasons. One, because you don't necessarily get as much like tracking around in the road as you do with a really wide tire like a 255 or a 265. But the other fun thing about it is that you have the grip, right? You have the stickiness of the tire compound, but you also can still move the car around and do, like, you know, little slides here and there on corner entry, on corner exit, or big slides depending on how hard you chuck the car. But a skinnier tire in a sticky compound can be an absolute blast to drive. Now, does that mean I'm going to be keeping, you know, skinnier tires on it forever? No, I will be going to a 255 square on this car in the future once I figure out a wheel setup that I really like, and also once I wear out these 215s, then I'll go to a wider wheel and tire setup. But absolutely having a blast with the car, absolutely having a blast with it. And I would love to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below on what you would do to this BRZ next, to this TS next, if it was yours. I would love to know what you guys would do next, considering now that we have on the car, we have a muffler delete, we have a full coilover suspension, and we have Virus lower control arms in the rear, so we can get the alignment dialed in however we want. And it's really, really at an interesting spot right now, because now, since we have coilovers, we can fit wide wheels. We can fit like an 18 by 9.5 if we really wanted to, or a 17 by 9. I'm still pretty much on the train of going down to a 17 on this car, although the 18s do look really good. I'm kind of on the fence about that. I would kind of like to run the same size that I run on the S2000, except a little bit narrower. On the S2000, I run a 17 by 10. On this, I'll be running a 17 by 9 if I decide to go 17s. But again, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. And yeah, I know there's going to be people out there that are going to be like, the next mod should be turbo. The next mod should always be turbo. But if I ever boost this car, I'll probably end up going the supercharged route. But to be honest with you guys, oh, and that's the other thing that I forgot to mention that I have on this car as well, is I have an oil cooler. Because the oil cooler, even on a factory power, non-tuned 86 or BRZ, an oil cooler is super important if you're going to be doing any kind of hard driving or track day work with the car, because that oil temp gets way too high, way too quick for me to be okay with not running a cooler. But like I said, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys would do to this car next. I have been having an absolute blast with it, and I hope you guys have been enjoying watching the process. If you want to get a more up close and personal view of what's going on with the car, make sure you follow my Instagram. The link is in the description down below, and I'll talk to you guys later.